17.
After active service, he became an instructional airframe for a number of years. What was for a time the quintet of all flying names in the 1930s it was possible to see. But HMS Glorious, which later became 802 Squadron.
Scout type on the Western Front. And this was in spite of the fact that they were only ever issued to squadrons in very small numbers.
Second World War, when the US Navy recognised that it had a need for a new patrol bomber to counter potential Japanese threats in the Pacific. There was a contest between Consolidated's design and an offering from Douglas. This won the day. It was a pure flying boat at that stage, with just a simple beaching gear being used to take the aircraft to and from land. This, of course, is one of the later amphibian versions, hence the PBY-5A designation.
Typically, she carried a crew of 10 on operation and accident when the aircraft turned over on a takeoff run. This particular example, in the livery of Miss Pickup, a search and rescue version, which was lost in the North Sea on a sortie when an engine failure resulted in the plane having to put down and then drifting for a number of hours before being shot up by the 262 German fighter.
When the ex-PBY-1 patrol bomber prototype first appeared, it achieved a new distance record on its main flight of in excess of 3,400 miles. This was a very innovative design in some ways, because to achieve that sort of extensive range, it had to incorporate a great amount of fuel tankage, but it also had to be as streamlined an airframe as possible. So Consolidated gave it a so-called wet wing, which means that the wing incorporates fuel tankage, which caused a considerable weight saving over having tanks elsewhere. Very clean lines, you can see, giving it low drag, and they made the vaulted floats, as we see demonstrated here, retractable.
The Navy claimed that the Americans originally didn't want. It was an order by the British War Ministry that actually saw the aircraft go into full production and eventually adopted it by more robust than the Sea Hurricane, the Sea-Fire, had the benefit also over that of a much greater range. Over 1,000 miles at 190 knots. Very distinctive wing form, entered service in 1942. Flew last operational sorties in the Soviet football wars between Honduras and El Salvador in 1969. And as an export version, flew with many air forces and navies around the world. As Ben mentioned earlier, this is actually a licensed-built version of the Vought Corsair, built by the Goodyear Corporation in America.
The Corsair was a very impressive performer when it first appeared with its maiden flight in May 1940. The engine, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp, was the most powerful and largest capacity engine of any fighter aircraft at the time, and it became the fastest American single-seat fighter of its day, able to exceed 400 miles an hour. Especially in terms of its suitability for carrier operations. And so it was that the US Marine Corps, flying F-4U Corsairs from land bases, was the first to use them operationally before the US Navy. And our own Fleet Air actually carrier qualified the Corsair before the US Navy did so.
Several changes to be made to the aircraft. A bulged canopy, for instance, was added to replace the original lattice canopy, sort of hurricane style that was in place. The pilot's seat was raised by some 7 inches to make visibility on approaching the carrier deck more straightforward. And there were modifications to the engine valves as well, to prevent oil spraying over the windshield. All of these make the carrier landings much more practical.
Fighters' most important combat aspects, and the US Marines employed F-4Us very effectively as fighters during their island hopping campaign through the Pacific. In fact, indeed, one of the most famous, if not the most famous exponents of the Corsair was a US Marine, Major Gregory Happy Boyington, commander of Marine Fighter Squadron VMF 214 Black Sheep.
Tremendous rate of climb of around about 4,500 feet a minute, and its top speed just shy of 400 knots. Excellent power to rate ratio on the Bearcat. First US Navy aircraft to be fitted with a bubble canopy. Had excellent wide track undercarriage for deck operations. The wings could be folded for storage below the flight deck. An interesting aspect of some of the early Bearcat designs was that the inner section of the wings was dressed to plus 7G. The outer sections of the wings weren't, to save weight. They were designed to break off if the aircraft exceeded 7.5G, but the aircraft still capable of flying on the inner wings to make it back to the carrier or to a land base. Two of the most famous civilian air races from those days at Reno and elsewhere. Lots of height, climb and speed records set by both those aircraft. And of course it was also a display aircraft prior to the Korean War for the US Navy Blue Angels team as well.
Design work on this new fighter began in 1943 when Japanese fighters were still posing a threat in the Pacific. It was a successor to the very successful F-6F Hellcat with markedly improved performance and lighter weight. Of course, this came at the penalty of shorter range. It was a classic combination: small airframe, big engine. Sparks recorded how violent the carrier takeoffs on the catapults of the day were. They gave rather less of a smooth launch left in my eyes and the front part of my brain, and my vision was gone for the first several seconds after launch. The forces were so great that even a strong, well-conditioned pilot couldn't hold his arms in front of him on launch, let alone the flight controls. In fact, the Bearcat was so powerful that it could launch from the carrier under just its own power without requiring a catapult if the conditions were right.
Brilliant.